Alright, this is my book, The Wild Reindeer, Christmas Reindeer, by Jan Barrett. The Wild Christmas Reindeer is a book about this elf named Tika is chosen by Santa to go train the reindeer for Christmas. So, this is my book. Tika was a little excited and a little afraid. Santa asked her to go train the reindeer for Christmas Eve this year. The last of the snow geese have flown south for the winter, and the winter farm was full of sounds of saws sawing, hammers hammering, and paintbrushes painting. Tika knew it was time to go catch the reindeer, so, because they've been out on the tundra since last Christmas. When she finally found them, it was Tremble, Bramble, Heather, Windswept, Lichen, Snowball, Craig, Twilight, and Tundra. The reindeer were not used to being herded around since they've been out on the tundra all winter. So, but they let her take them to the winter farm. Tundra wasn't used to being herded. He was used to being the boss. And he was in the back instead of the front with Twilight. The next morning, when Tika went to the barn, Lichen was frightened by Craig, who kept nipping at him. Bramble was worried, so she drove Heather wild. Twilight kept calling out to Tundra, and Tundra was just plain angry and stomping his hooves. Tika groomed each reindeer to keep them sleek and glossy for Santa. She combed their ears hard until they were pink. Then Tika took the reindeer out to the snow and tried to put their harnesses on. Tika tried to line up the reindeer, but the reindeer would not stay lined up. Next day, Tika harnessed the reindeer inside instead of outside. Then, when she took them out, they ran off. Craig walked in with Tundra and Heather rushed to help, but the antlers did not break free. Windswept nudged at Lichen and ran to Craig. The more they tried to help, the more they got tangled up. Their necks strained and their muscles buckled, but the antlers did not budge. Tika wailed, "Oh please, it's almost Christmas Eve." A frosty silence hung in the air. Tika looked at the reindeer, one so bold and free, and tried to cry. "It's all my fault," she said. "I spent all my time yelling at you instead of helping. I'm sorry." And one by one, she gave the reindeer a hug. "Smile," she said. "We'll go to work in a new way. No yelling, no screaming, and no bossing. I promise. Let's try to get you free." The reindeer listened to Tika's voice, and they all started to laugh. When they laughed, the antlers jiggled. Before Tika could help, she heard a spring, spring, sprung sound, and the antlers jiggled free. Quietly, Tika led the reindeer back to the barn. She sleeked up their coats and gently brushed their ears and combed out their mane. Tika nudged their cheek. The next day, the reindeer lined up in two lines, ready to harness. With Twilight and Tundra leading the line, they practiced turning left and turning right. Tika directed them softly. Tundra pulled through twilight. Rumble was gentle to the lichen. Windswept helped Heather. Snowball nestled next to Craig. Together they practiced long and hard. They didn't notice it was getting dark, and they didn't hear the jingle in the distance. It was Santa standing by the sleigh, piled high with presents and ready to go. Now the reindeer were ready to. Tika led them to the sleigh. Santa smiled and nodded his thanks. Then he climbed aboard and waved at Tika, who watched the wild reindeer rose up together and carried the sleigh off into the night. That was my book, The Wild Reindeer. Oh, guys, I'm not done yet. Conclusion. So, this book proves to you guys, if you guys take your time, do things right, it'll turn out being a lot easier in life. And that's it.
You guys ever think about going outside, jumping in the leaves?
No. Who wouldn't?
Think about where leaves go
No.
and how high they go up?
No.
Well, I am going to tell you guys about a story about a young kid named Tommy who decided to go outside and become a leaf and join the leaves in flying around. So my story is called High and Lifted Up. So, it was a very windy day one fall afternoon when a mailman came, knocked on the door. The door opened, Mrs. Pennington said hello, and then she handed the mail, and then the door slammed on his face. The mail went all the way in the house, all the way back around. She went and picked it up and said, "Oh my," as Tommy, her young son, was sitting there watching the shutters open, close, open, close. He said, "Mom, can I go outside and play?" Mrs. Pennington said, "Sure, honey. Be careful, it's really windy outside." He opens the door, and it slams really loud again, and the mail flies out of her hand, and she says, "Oh my." She picks it up, and she forgets that her son doesn't have a jacket outside. It's really cold and really windy. Well, Tommy is laying on the ground, like so, watching the leaves on the roof jump up and down, off the roof and onto the ground. So he was like, well, what if I was a leaf? Where would I go? What would I do? So he sees the leaves, and he's like, well, I'm going to join them. So his mom comes outside and is like, "Tommy, where are you? You forgot your jacket." And Tommy isn't there. Tommy is gone. Tommy is running down the street with the leaves in a whirlwind. And as he's running, a leaf brushes his shoulder. So he is like, well, I'm going to pull ahead of the leaf that just pulled ahead of me. And so he pulls ahead of it, and the leaf says, "Hello." Tommy says, "Hello, maple leaf." And the maple leaf says, "Do you know where this is going?" And an older leaf, who has been there for a while, says, "Well, you either go up to the heavens and see what no leaf has ever seen before, or you go down to the city dump." And Tommy says, "Well, I don't want to do that." So Tommy's like, "Well, can we go up to the heavens, Maple Tree Leaf?" And Maple Tree Leaf says, "Well, all my friends are at the dump, so do you want to go there with me? I don't want to be lonely, and it'll give me some company when I go down there." And Tommy thinks about it for a while, and Tommy says, "Sure." So Tommy and the Maple Tree Leaf leave the older leaf, and the older leaf is going up, and he says, "Guys, you won't believe what is up here." And then the older leaf disappears. Tommy and the Maple Tree Leaf are going down the road. Many cars pass, and they're all looking at Tommy and wondering what he is doing. Tommy sees himself as a leaf, so he is rolling on the ground, jumping over cars, crawling on the sidewalk, acting like a leaf with his new friend, the maple tree leaf. They get to the junkyard, and just as they're about to go over the fence, the mother, Mrs. Pennington, comes up beside and says, "Tommy, you can't go in there. What are you doing?" And Tommy says, "Well, my friend Maple Leaf says his friends are all there." And she's like, "What Maple Leaf?" And he's like, "That one." So then Tommy goes back and tries to grab it, but can't reach. So his mom, Mrs. Pennington, comes up, grabs the leaf, and puts it in her pocket and says, "There, now we can go home. It's time for supper." So they go home, and on the way there, Tommy grabs the leaf out of her pocket and throws it out the window just before they get to the house. He sees the maple tree leaf fly up and go into where no leaf has ever seen before, the heavens. And so this story tells you, you guys can have fun just off your imagination. You guys could go outside, pretend you're a leaf. You guys could go outside. I wouldn't recommend jumping over cars and crawling on the ground or running in the middle of the street or going to a junkyard. But you guys could maybe stay in your yard, act like a leaf, or you guys could just act like a rock if you want to be a rock, or any other simpler object, and just use your imagination to have fun.